we up, Sarah?
Okay, guys. Good to go. Okay, good morning. It is 9 o'clock and I call this meeting to order. Welcome council and staff and the residents in the audience and also our viewing public. Please stand if you're able for the playing of the national anthem performed by the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. Okay, as with all our meetings, we have someone read the land recognition statement, and today it is my honor to do so. We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people. I forgot to mention that we do have quorum. Councillor Kerr is joining us on Zoom. Good morning, Councillor Kerr. And he's only going to be with us for a portion of the meeting, but we will still have quorum. Before we get into official business, I'd like to turn it over to our CAO, Mr. Krebs.
Thank you. Last week, I made a pair of errors. The first was a mistake of fact, and then that turned into a analytical or interpretive error. And, you know, anyone who knows me, that's sort of par for the course. Errors are my default norm. But when you make them publicly and other people rely on them to their detriment, if you break something in public, you really ought to fix it in public too. So what I'd like to do at this time is offer an unqualified apology to anyone to whom I caused embarrassment, challenge, confusion, and utterly, I suspect, disappointment in many circles. So, not the first mistake I've made in life, but what I have found over the arc of my life and my career is that errors really are amongst the best teachers. And what I promise is that I'll learn from this one and make sure I do better in the future. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krebs. So this brings us to the approval of the agenda. Everyone's had a chance to look at the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, we bring it to the vote. All those in favor of the agenda? That's unanimous, so that's carried. And does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof to declare? Seeing none. Mr. Treasurer, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So moving now to item 6.1, delegations. Our first delegation, we have Laura Nelson about budget requests for improvements to the Isaac Reel Skate Park.
Good morning, council and staff and residents and everybody at home. My name is Laura Nelson, and this is my daughter, Jamie. We moved down to Font Hill about 4 years ago, and my son lived with me while Jamie lived with her dad in Mississauga. My son perished in a car accident just over a year ago, September 9th, coming home from Smithville. He worked at Turkstra Lumber. It was a single vehicle accident that took his life. Sean, there's a picture of him here. I don't know, Jamie, if you want to show it so that people can see it at home. He was a very kind-hearted, funny 23-year-old who was very active in sports, but particularly he really did enjoy the skateboarding and BMX biking and stuff like that. So he did spend a lot of time at various parks around the Niagara area. And he did love it down here when he came down. He fell in love with the area with going to Niagara College. And so then he didn't want to ever come home back to Mississauga because he just loved it out here so much. After he passed last year, we had a lot of people asking us where they could make some donations. And at the time, we really didn't have any idea of where we wanted to allocate any time or money. We were just very deep in the grief. However, the owner, Mr. Frank Turkstra of Turkstra Lumber, where he worked, had watched the video that I provided. I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to go look at the video that my daughter put together, just like a memoir of him. And Frank Turkstra saw that he had a lot of skateboarding in different parks and stuff. And he actually came up with the idea of possibly making some improvements to one of his favorite parks. And that idea pretty much stuck with us for the year. And we kept tossing it around, like, what should we do? Shouldn't we do? And then, we decided maybe we would do a fundraiser for that. So with that, after the passing, a lot of Sean's friends, younger friends that we didn't even know that he made at the skate park, came to our door just to give condolences and, just give us some really heartwarming stories about Sean and, how they looked up to him. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was one of the boys said that Sean helped him learn how to defend himself at the park. And it was just very, very emotional and very touching. And so we thought we would reach out to these boys and ask them what Sean's favorite park was. And it turned out that it was the Isaac Reel Park, which I'm sure all of you know is Isaac actually passed away. It'll be 12 years next month, skateboarding on the road. So it's funny that was his favorite park, and he loved skateboarding. So I guess he just resonated with that area. I don't know. However, we asked these boys if we were to make any improvements on the park, what would it be that you guys would like? And they came back with very, very modest recommendations, and I did put those down. And I did photocopy some pictures of what the boys are asking for, just to give you guys some good ideas, like what it looks like. So if you were to turn to page 1, I'm just going to go through quickly what the changes would be. And again, just to let you know, we have proceeded with a fundraiser, and to date, we do have $18,000 collected. Our goal is 50, and we are hoping that the town will be able to contribute, possibly matching what we already have. If you're looking at the first picture, the first one you see, that's the waiting pad of where the boys wait before they dive into one of their stunts, and it's quite small. And one of the boys, some of the boys recommended, if you turn to page 2, there's a bigger area of grass area. They just asked if they could have more cemented area so that their feet are not in the grass getting wet, and therefore wet feet, but also more dangerous, like performing their stunts when they're trying to get back on their boards and stuff like that. So that's one little cemented area that they would like to have expanded. Then if you were to go to page 3, I don't know the terminology of what the skate park would call this. I call it a rail, I guess. I just made a little square mark. There's grass on the other side, so one part of that rail is not being used at all, and the boys actually asked if that could be paved over, smooth, then more turns could be taken because the grass on the other side would not inhibit skateboarding. So again, very minor upgrade, just taking away some grass, putting down cement. I provided another picture just from a different angle to show you how small the area really is, and it abuts up against some landscaping. And then one of the other little things that they asked for is, and I again don't know what this is called, but there's a big hole in the area cemented on page 5. I have been there where there's been caution tape around it, and the boys said that this area is very dangerous for a lot of the younger kids, and none of the older kids use it for whatever it's supposed to be. So they actually would love it to be cemented in and just smoothed over like the rest of the park. Again, I think that should maybe be a town item that would be paid for, just because it was already there when it was created. So basically that is my spiel for today, and wanting to try to commemorate Sean's memory. Just with this park, we're not looking to change the name of the park at all. I have been in touch with Bonita, and I do have her blessing to make any of the improvements to the park. And if anything were to go ahead, the only thing that we would want to maybe provide is a plaque in memory of Sean with the improvements made to the park.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nelson. First off, I want to say I'm very sorry for your loss. I couldn't imagine what you and your family have been going through over the last year, and our sincerest sympathies to you and your family. At this time, I'd like to pass it over to council, and if they've got any questions of Ms. Nelson, please do so. And I see Councillor Hildebrand has put up his hand, so the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. Death of one's children, I believe to be one of the most tragic events in a person's life. I can't even imagine what it's like. My heartfelt condolences to your situation.
Thank you.
I'm sure individuals who use the skate park appreciate all the efforts you've taken to work on this skate park, especially those kids that are skaters. And we will seriously take into account the items you've listed on there when we proceed with our budgets. So thank you again for appearing, and my heartfelt condolences.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody. Have a great day.
Any other questions from any other councillors? Seeing none, I thank you again, and I guess we have to have a motion.
We do.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a motion moved by Councillor Niznik and seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that Council receive the presentation and 2024 budget submission from Laura Nelson regarding improvements to the Isaac Real Skate Park for information, and that the request be referred to staff for inclusion in the budget discussions and considerations.
Thank you. So we'll put it to the vote. All those in favor? That's unanimous, so carried. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much.
The next delegation we have today is Ron Hall, and he's here to talk to you about improvements for the pickleball park in Fenwick.
Thank you for allowing me to make this presentation. Basically, I'm going to request 3 projects that is under capital expenses. I know it's, which is why I'm here. I've been involved with pickleball since when they were building the community center. I was pushing I should say Julie Cook and Kim at the time, I believe, was looking after operations, and we were making sure we'd get pickleball into the community center. Since then, we had a gentleman by the name James Fraser that did a presentation to you guys that we're very thankful that you accepted and went ahead with the outdoor pickleball. As you know, pickleball is growing in leaps and bounds. It's one of the fastest growing sports in North America. Now, in Fenwick, at the present time, it's doing great. Membership keeps growing. Even yesterday, I had new members out. But there are 3 things that we are looking at that we need improvements. The first one is the parking lot and possibly the road leading up to it. We've had an issue the last month or more where we don't know who's doing it, but obviously there's young kids probably out there in the parking lot spinning their tires, spinning the car, and flying stones all over. Our 2 courts closest to the parking lot, I should say, have been covered with stones, and we got to go out and sweep them off. And the area where we sit, the cement pad at the entrance to the courts, you couldn't even see the cement pad. They're totally covered with stones. Plus, we have an issue with the dust. It covers all the courts from the road. So that's my number 1. If we could look into that, paving the parking lot would be great for everybody concerned out there, and would hopefully maintain the courts as well. You don't want to start deteriorating the surface in that. So that's number 1. Number 2, it would be nice if we had washrooms out in that area. I know you've got washrooms by the tennis courts, which is quite a walk, but you've got 2 soccer fields out there too. The west and south end would accommodate all sport areas there, sporting people. So that's one that I get requested all the time by the women, because they do not like a porta potty, which we have 1 there. And we have issues with the porta potty. I should let you know the women don't like it, but half the time there's no toilet paper in it. So I would like you to look at having washrooms put out there, which would be nice for everybody concerned. Now, the third issue is something that was supposed to be done this year and never came about. I don't know why. I'm sure there's reasons. But we were supposed to have a cement pad put in with a shelter. And this is very important for us playing pickleball, because as you guys know, it's getting very hot in the summer. And we're sitting in extreme sun and heat many times in June, July, into August, and we need some shade. Most pickleball parks I've been to all have shelters and shade for the people. If it happens to rain even and this type of thing, you can at least sit under it and have a picnic or 1 or 2 picnic tables. So I understood they had the shelter in-house. I don't know what happened, but we were supposed to have that done at the start of the year, put in. So that is the other 3rd capital expense that we'd like done, especially for next year. We definitely need shade out there. And the last thing is my personal issue. Since I've been involved with pickleball at the Meridian since it opened, and I know you guys are all aware of this, but I've been bugging this for 5 years. The windows. We have players that will not play at the Meridian because they can't see. On a bright sunny day, that sun comes through those windows, and it's really difficult. And I know for 5 years you got a beautiful $38 million community center, and yet you got an issue with those windows. And I know you've heard this over and over. I'm sure basketball's complained. But I just feel that you've got to do something in that area. Because when you got people that won't play, and I believe you, I've got a number of pickleball players, they're usually the better players, will not come because they say they can't see during the day. Now, at night, it's no problem in the gym because it's a beautiful gym and everybody likes the floor and the gym and everything. But if it's a bright sunny day during the day, they don't enjoy it. And you have to remember, I have a lot of seniors in this. And seniors, like myself, are getting hard to even see. So, it's difficult for them. So anyway, that's the last major, and I know that's a major project, but and I understand maybe you're looking into it, but I just want to emphasize that something should be done in that area. So, but that's short and sweet. That's what I presented to you. So that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hall. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Nisnik.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. There, we got her. Yes, so thank you for your presentation. I just, some of them are fairly costly items that, paving is always exorbitant. So of those asks, how would you prioritize those asks, I guess, and then we could go kind of from there?
Well, my number one would be the shelter.
The shelter.
Because that was supposed to be done this year. I don't know what, like I said, I don't know what happened. But that would be number one because, as you guys know, in the summer, it is hot. And we have a lot of women that play, and a lot of us are well over 60 and 70 years old that play. So that would be my number one. The number two would be the parking lot, only because this has come up recently, where we're seeing a real issue with people, probably young kids in cars, and the stones are flying everywhere. Yeah. So that would be my number two. Washroom, obviously, is a nice thing. Eventually, and it would not just help us. You've got 2 soccer fields out there that get really busy in that as well. And, of course, we have a lot of women that play pickleball. So that would be my third, I think. Okay. But my overall number one would be the windows.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Not sure who designed that.
So.
And then I saw also on your ask you had a defibrillator.
You had what?
A defibrillator.
Oh,
at the court site?
Yeah, we've requested that. I was going to work with Vicky on that,
yeah,
but
okay.
It would be really nice, again, because the average age for pickleball is over 50, and a lot of us are in our 60s and 70s. We even had one gentleman that is now playing again that actually had a slight stroke in the meridian, and he's actually the one pushing me to try to get a defibrillator there, which I believe would be very important type of thing. We'd have to get, some of us are very willing to take the courses to learn how to use it and this type of thing. I know the problem, from what I understand, is where to put it.
Yeah.
Where to locate it, because you sure don't want it stolen or whatever.
That it's inside and it's secure.
I don't know what you could do there.
Good.
I mean, we do have a lock box inside the courts.
Okay.
That is a possibility, but obviously somebody could break it.
All right, well, maybe, we can continue to work with Ms. Van Ravensway over those issues. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. And Councillor Hildebrand, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Pickleball. I really appreciate it. Yeah, well, he is Mr. Pickleball, both at the Meridian Center and out there at Fenwick. And obviously I play. The one that concerns me the most is the stones all over and the dust all over your courts. I don't know what we can do with regards to enforcement. Unfortunately, our fire chief isn't here, but something has to be done. It's just that whole area has that same problem, whether you're in the soccer fields or probably even it gets under the grass by the baseball fields.
Yeah.
I don't know what can be done, but something has to be done about that. It's
Yeah, and I know just driving down the gravel road, the car's going to do it on its own, as far as dust and dirt and that. But what we're seeing is we can see the tracks in the parking lot where they're spinning. They're doing it on purpose, spinning their tires and stuff.
That's your observation is absolutely right, and something has to be done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Hall. So, go ahead.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Kerr and seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive the presentation and 2024 budget submission from Ron Hall regarding the pickleball park in Fenwick for information, and that the requests be referred to staff for inclusion in the budget discussions and consideration.
Okay, so all those in favor? And that's unanimous, so it's carried. And I believe Mrs. Youngblood, you're up.
Thank you. And good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, appearing before the acting mayor and members of council and staff, as well as the other residents that are here. I wish I could speak as eloquently as my two previous presenters have, but I do have notes that I am going to refer to because there's a lot of information here that I do not want to miss. So I want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Pelham Cares regarding this submission that I did forward to members of the committee. Things are really changing and we're dealing with a lot of challenges currently at Pelham Cares. Our staff are currently unable to manage the existing workload, never mind the increases that we are projecting. New client visits have increased by 186% in the first 6 months of 2023. Total client visits have increased by 58% in the first 6 months of this year. This resulted in the need to increase hours of operation, as well as hire an additional administrative assistant staff person. Our hours of operation currently are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8:30 to noon, Tuesday, Thursday, 8:30 to 4:30. We expect that in 2024, we will need to increase our hours to Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, with the growing need for our services. This is a 50% increase in operating hours and the associated staffing. Our administration staff assists with client intake, weighing of donations received, recording of data, answering phones, dealing with walk-ins, etc. Additional staff is required as current staff are unable to manage the current client workload. Current Niagara Regional Transportation Services, it's not working. It is not a benefit to our clients. A number of our clients do not have their own vehicles. They have to rely on their neighbors, relatives to bring them to the office, while others are walking into the office, carrying backpacks to take their groceries home with them, or even riding bicycles. I did witness a couple riding double on a single bicycle, coming to the office, and then taking home bags and carrying them. That is so unsafe, but it's their only way of getting there. There's definitely a need for a smaller municipal transportation service. We strongly see the need in this for sure. We are currently applying for grants and have received some grants to help with capital projects like our new lift and our new walk-in freezer. There are, we believe, more opportunities for grants to help Pelham Cares with wages. However, our staff and volunteers do not have the capability or the capacity to do more in this area. Grant writing services would be of great benefit to us. A partnership with the town is what we were looking for in this area. Donations from businesses and communities are decreasing in these challenging economic times. We do conduct fundraising initiatives. However, the amounts raised are far below what is required. As the town's population grows and becomes more diverse, so do our clients. This means more staff time as we deal with language issues and a greater variety of client needs. We're presented with inquiries for employment support services, domestic abuse issues, tenant eviction, etc. Housing is one of the main things that people are coming through our doors asking for help with. So that leads to say that Pelham Cares is becoming more of a social services agency for Pelham residents as they have nowhere else in town to go. We need to have an ongoing open communication with the town of Pelham regarding partnerships in many of these areas. We are quickly outgrowing our facility, and we encourage the town to include Pelham Cares in any future planning of municipal facilities. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. And I'll turn it over to Councillor Olson. He's got a question.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Youngblood, for your presentation there. The numbers are surely alarming, and the need is certainly growing. When you mentioned transit, we had a transit commission meeting yesterday, and you know, the transit commission is also becoming a social services business as well, because people are leaving the shelters, getting on the bus and staying on the bus all day until the shelters open in the evening. And we've seen many demonstrations of that. And we're also going to be doing something in the work with the paratransit. But that's something that I brought up before, and the need for a different type of a transit system for here. And I'm very aware of the fact that that it just doesn't work. And this idea that you can get a ride there, but you can't bring your groceries with when you come back is not a workable thing. So
That's one of the major issues. They can
Yep.
get the NRT, but they will not wait for them, and it's a matter of a 5 to 8 minute
yeah,
getting the groceries and getting on their way again, but they refuse to wait. So we have people sitting there for hours sometimes before NRT will come back and pick them up again.
they won't allow them back on with their groceries sometimes.
That's correct.
So
That's correct.
Why would you go to the food bank and not come back with
Not
your
come
groceries?
back with groceries.
So-
That's right.
No, but thank you very much for the work. I know the work of Pelham Cares is tremendous. And the work you're doing with the young people as well and providing them opportunities to volunteer is great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Just a couple of comments then. So your first bullet point, assistance with grant writing, had conversation with CAO yesterday with respect to grant writing, and we do have that type of person
Yes.
on staff, and we will be certainly willing to help with grant submissions. So that's not a costly thing for us to do. So we're able to do that. Financial support. What are you looking for? You know, as far as dollars are concerned. That's it.
We haven't affixed any type of a dollar requirement. I think a partnership in so many different ways, programming, the grant writing, transportation, and maybe a new home or inclusion in a home. We're willing to sit down and discuss any and all of those possibilities. And I think that's where it needs to go from here. An open discussion and communication.
Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
I have another meeting to go to, so I am going to leave.
Go quick.
Thank you.
I'll turn it over to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that Council received the presentation and 2024 budget submission from Nancy Youngblood for Pelham Cares regarding social services for information, and that the request be referred to staff for inclusion in the budget discussions and consideration.
So all those in favor? Unanimous, so carried.
Mr. Chair, our next delegation is from Pelham Minor Soccer.
Baseball.
Oh, baseball, sorry.
That works.
They're slightly different games.
Okay, Mr. Peters, you've got the floor.
Thanks, council, staff. Appreciate the time. My name's Matt Peters. I'm the president of our local Pelham Minor Baseball Association. Thought I might have 10 minutes, so I'm going to quickly skip over a few of the thank yous, but it is important to pump a few tires here because we have a pretty important partnership, unofficial partnership with the town of Pelham, and we really appreciate everything that Vicky and Brian and Haley do to help us focus on the positivity of what we want to bring to our community with what they can do with offering our facilities. So I'll jump right into it. You have a bit of a list of kind of our shopping list, and yeah, it's extensive. But I'll tell you why I've kind of brought those forth. Our main threat right now to Pelham is, or our baseball association, is from growth. It's a good problem. Membership is growing, and we're pressed right up against the ceiling for field times. Utilizing the space the best we can every day of the week. It becomes especially challenging in a year where we get over 12 inches of rain in the month of July, and to find field times and to reschedule. We're all doing our best, but we could use some help. And our second biggest threat is history. Like any sport, there are ebbs and flows in popularity, so we endeavor to actively keep our registration numbers manageably in growth mode. We feel safety is a big part of fun, as it breeds confidence. Kids have more fun when they can confidently execute their skill. When they have more fun, they want to play baseball next year and get their friends involved. So safety is a cornerstone to fun. Example of that would be sliding, and we teach our kids how to slide in the grass. And then they go to execute that in the game, and they're on a sand or a gravel diamond. They slide once, do it exactly how the coach told them. They get a knee full of stones, never want to do it again. Okay? So just as a how that kind of reads, you guys understand. I'm sure a lot of you have had kids in baseball and sports. Okay, so jumping into some of our list, I want to make mention. I think I made a mistake in one part. C1 is the diamond closest to the Lions Park and Splash Pad at Centennial Field. I think I labeled that as C2. C2 is the furthest in the corner. C3 is closest to the fire hall. So on your little map, I think I made a mistake there. It's a big shopping list. I know everybody's strapped for money. So I guess I'll focus on what we think is the most important. First of all, we'd like to have sand on all the diamonds, sand/clay mix. We think that's really important, not just for our leagues, but also for the softball leagues. It just makes baseball a lot more fun. It can be easier for maintenance. It can create some challenges for maintenance. So with that, we'd also like to request tarps for the mounds and the batter's boxes. This past summer, where we do have clay and sand diamonds, we found that most of the field is ready to play except for the batter's boxes and the mounds. When they work those over and the maintenance department, it becomes a mucky mess in those spots because it's lighter sand that fills in holes. Tarp would help that, or just having some extra clay for the maintenance people, have it available for them to be able to fill those holes in, would be great. There's a few diamonds that we figure that we could also have access to that are predominantly used for softball. Of course, they have first crack at their own diamonds. That's needless to say. We just like to request, first of all, that, eventually they get transitioned back to sand clay from gravel, and then that we add our dimensions for base posts and mounds, or not mounds, sorry, it needs to be flat if it's softball, but pitching rubbers. There's a few, so Herald Black 1 is a good example of that. We use Herald Black 2, which needs some maintenance. I won't get too far into that, but Herald Black 1 is it's closest to the soccer field. It's only used twice a week. It's not set up for baseball. We could really use it. So just making sure we can use that. Love to transition that one to sand, so that would be kind of our second priority with a big capital expense. With the first one is C1, because that's we got a batting cage in Centennial Park this year. Been wonderful, and I don't think I'm allowed to mention the word batting cage without saying thank you to the Government of Canada, FedDev Ontario, the Tourism Partnership of Niagara, and the good folks here in the office that helped us get that funding. So thanks to Leah as well. And you, thanks. So that's kind of it. I know that it's a big shopping list, and we're open to discussion on what's most important. And there's a lot of general safety stuff that shouldn't be a big capital expenditure, that we're just looking to try to make sure the kids are having fun and safe on the benches. Shade is huge. We're set up to put shade in, just it never goes up, right? We have structure. We just need a tarp. Yeah. So simple stuff like that, I think that you can probably find a little bit of money for, and then bigger expenditures on a couple diamonds. And every year, if we can kind of transition a diamond into clay, it'll just be better for all of Pelham and our community of baseball. Just want to thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay, so before I turn it over to council, I've got a couple of questions. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Peters. Any idea on the cost to convert a diamond from stone dust to clay sand?
So Vicky's on the call, and I don't know if she has this in front of her, but I know Brian Secord does have a number. He already has a quote for C1. And so I don't know if they could bring that forth now, or if they might not be prepared to, but they do have a quote already.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
There's Vicky. So,
Sorry to
Vicky.
put you on the spot here, Vicky, because I know it was Brian that said he had it.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Great presentation, Matt. Yes, we do have our, in the capital budget, we did have the diamond scheduled every so often to be turned into clay. I believe, and you caught me off guard, I don't have it in front of me, I believe it was approximately $60,000 to turn a diamond into the clay. Also, just a note, when you do turn it into clay, there is a higher level of maintenance, as well as you mentioned, Matt, additional clay that needs to be added on a regular basis. And I believe this year we have finally started to stockpile the clay, and it's being worked into the budget. So as we gradually turn the diamonds into clay diamonds, we also have a maintenance expenditure as well. But of course, the level of service and also the safety aspect. And that's the main reason why we were turning them into clay diamonds from the gravel.
Okay, thank you. There's other things that you've put on here as far as tops for the fencing and whatever. And if I recall, it's just some drainage pipe to fit over there. So I think that's pretty doable and relatively cost effective. Any other questions from councilors for Mr. Peters? Yes, Councilor Eckhart.
Good morning. Thanks for your presentation. Some of us aren't that old that we actually remember playing, and we don't have to relive it through our children and grandchildren. And I appreciate your comments on the stone diamond. We used to refer to them, right, John, as raspberries. And everyone had one by the 1st of June.
And it was there until October.
Oh, yeah.
After every game, my wife would have to help me pick out the stones.
Oh. And I coached ladies fastball for many years, and right at the start of the season, the girls would say, well, there's the end of short season. And that was the big thing back 35, 40 years ago to get more use out of ball diamonds, was to change them all over to the crushed stone because it drained better, and after a rainfall you could use the diamond quicker than dirt, and now we're going back to them. My one question I have for you about Harold Black Park is obviously with baseball you use a mound for your pitching. For you to use that one that's now used by softball, how would that work?
We would be okay with not having a mound.
Oh, okay. That's perfect. Thank you very much.
Because we understand, like, it's a softball diamond. We're not trying to take away from softball. If anything, we're trying to add value to their operation as well. So we would probably use that for house league 11U and 13U. So we'd need two different mounds. I don't know the spacing on a softball mound, or if that rubber, or sorry, when I say mound, I'm rubber, if that can be removed and replaced and get it out of their way. I mean, we're open to that too. There's also magnetic options, right? And that's also in our list of things to look at, having magnetic base plates instead of holes. And then it's another safety thing that we'd like to pursue, and it's something that we're willing to do some fundraising on as well, because we think it's quite important. So,
thank you, Mr.
Councilor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And yes, and I want to say thank you again for your support of minor sports and organizing this. This is a terrific thing, and I see that the ages you have are under 5 and all kinds of youth activities, and there's nothing better for the community and for the kids. So I would lean very much towards anything that's to do with the younger kids, get them started in the sport and into, team activities, because I think it's so important. Last year we bought this year we bought a grooming tractor for the for the ball diamonds. How did that work out?
Didn't stop the rain, so
Yeah.
if we could
Yeah.
get that option next time, that'd be great. As far as the fields were concerned, I think that the town staff has done better this year than any other year that I've seen it. So I honestly didn't know that they had a new one, so maybe that had something to do with it.
Yeah.
But it could have something to do, like it's been a really good arrangement with the town and good open conversations with Vicky's team.
Yeah.
I think it's been really, really good, and then good open scheduling. So like we never really had much of a problem scheduling wise. We had shared Google Docs about who's doing what and when, so everybody was on the same page for when to line, when to work it, and we just stayed off it when we had to. We were really happy with that. And I guess the other thing to your point with 5U, 7U, we have more kids in those age groups than any other group, and it falls off drastically. I did put on there that we'd like another small little T-ball diamond at North Pelham, and we think that could go in the outfield of where we have a current T-ball field. It's a big hit if it can go to the grass.
Yeah.
Right? And that to me is pretty, it doesn't take up a lot of space, but that's, again, we've got lots of requests. I know it's one thing, one step at a time, but we need to try to keep that interesting for those kids, keep the stones out of their knees, and keep them interested in baseball. And then, of course, that leads into softball as they're older and everything else.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And maybe we took the delivery of the tractor after it stopped raining, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, no, I would definitely lean towards anything to do with the younger kids, because there's nothing better than on a Saturday morning to go over and watch the crowd over there at the T-ball and watch them play ball there. So I appreciate that. And in the North Pelham Park, that would be, I looked at your map there, and that's the ideal spot, I think, for that type of thing, so.
Thanks for the support. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, thanks again, Mr. Peters, for your presentation, and turn it over to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that council receive the presentation and 2024 budget submission from Matt Peters on behalf of Pelham Minor Baseball Association for information, and that the request be referred to staff for inclusion in budget discussions and consideration.
Okay, so all those in favor of this? Yeah, okay, so that's unanimous, so that's carried.
Thank you. So now moving to item 6.2, we have a staff presentation. We have Brianna Langor, Manager of People Services, here to talk about council remuneration overview.
Okay, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, good morning, everybody. Today I'm going to go over the findings of a council compensation review conducted earlier this summer with respect to yours council compensation. Okay, so to give you a bit of a background, we did conduct a market review back in 2021. At that time, it was undertaken by a consultant by the name of Marianne Love. She is a compensation specialist who focuses almost exclusively in the municipal sector. So she's worked with municipalities across the province and most of us here in Niagara as well. The comparator group for both the 2021 and the current survey included all 12 of the Niagara municipalities. We were lucky enough to receive data from everybody who was invited to participate, which was very helpful. And then both 2021 and current reviews indicate that Pelham's Town Council is significantly underpaid in comparison to the rest of the region. So these two charts summarize the findings of the review. The top chart includes the data from the region and the bottom excludes it. That's going to be the focus of my presentation, to exclude the region. They are paid significantly higher. It really does skew that data upwards. So just including the lower tier municipalities does make much more sense for Pelham. So you'll see on the bottom chart here, currently the mayor earns an annual salary of $39,858, and each councillor earns $18,268. There's a number of data points here in the charts. There's the average salary around the region. Here is the median salaries around the region. But the number of most significance is the 55th percentile number, which is staff's recommended target. So there we're looking at a salary of $50,660 for the mayor and $22,757 for each councillor. So again, staff are endorsing the compensation recommendation. That excludes the region, so that it is only the 11 lower tier municipalities included as the comparator group. We are also recommending that we target the 55th percentile. We believe that to be both reasonable and consistent, as that is the compensation target that council approved for the rest of the non-union staff. And what the goal is here is to essentially attract a broader age range demographic to municipal office, which will ultimately increase diversity. When compensation is as low as it is, it tends to attract people of retirement age or those who are already wealthy. So hopefully if we increase salaries, that will attract a variety of different candidates to run. With respect to financial compensations, the total cost to implement these changes for the mayor and all of council would be $40,019. That does include benefits for the entire year. If you vote to increase your compensation, there are two options. We can do this on October 5th, which is the next pay date. That would require an additional $10,774 to be added to this year's budget, which we can easily fund with existing gapping dollars. Alternatively, we can do this on January 1st and include this in the 2024 budget. So what I'd like to close this off with is just stressing the importance of bringing Pelham into a better alignment with the rest of Niagara. The work you do is important and should be compensated accordingly. It's also important that we continue to go back out to market to ensure we remain at the target level so we don't start to fall behind again. So, at least once per term of council, but ideally twice, and that's something that the People Services Department can easily undertake. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Ms. Langor. Any questions of council? Councillor Kerr.
Finally. I've raised my hand a couple of times and then it just kind of keeps going. I have two questions through you, Deputy Mayor. One, when was the last quote raise approved by council for its members? And then I have a second question to follow up.
Every year.
Yeah, sorry, I did miss the question, but are you asking when was council salaries increased last?
Correct, because not through cost of living. I'm talking about, I realized that the last council deferred and pushed it off to this council. What was the year in which a council actually approved a formal raise?
That has not happened since I've been here. So I've been here since 2018. It's only gone up by the cost of living, which is outlined in the bylaw.
I guess that kind of leads me into the second question, which you may not be able to answer. I guess if we were looking at comparable municipalities and the dates in which they've approved raises, and whether the Pelham Council has not undertaken those actions at a similar time, which has resulted in a situation of being substantially behind other municipalities. I guess my concern is every time that there's a deferral of things, anytime you try to play catch up, it looks like a massive increase only because the increases were not matched per normal operating practices, I guess, if you think about it. So that was what I was trying to look at, is if I knew when the original raise was put forward, looking at how many years it's been in between, might give a rationale as to why municipal remuneration is so much lower. And the secondary side is, I mean, there's been comments made before of looking at being practical, and comments have been made about living wages and other things. And I agree with your comments on attracting people maybe to the position that are not, or are discouraged because it doesn't compensate them adequately for their time, especially a younger person with other job requirements and other things that are going on, to try and make it worthwhile. So those were really my two questions: when the last raise that council approved had been undertaken, and what it would have looked like if there had been comparable match of raises relative to neighboring municipalities on their dates.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr, for those comments. I see CAO has got his thumb on the button, so I'd like to make some comments.
I apologize for not being able to tell you when the last substantive raise occurred, but what we can tell you is that the substantive pay cut occurred in 2018. And that's really, I think, the better way of thinking about this. Cost of living, I mean, the fact someone makes $100,000 now and that used to be $30,000, go back far enough in history, right? That's just inflation. We all sort of understand that. But in a substantive way, the last council earned this council and the last council earned substantially less than the council prior to it. So 2 councils back. And but for a change here, that will continue to be the case. And all that happens is we continue to operate in an increasingly complicated environment. And, as Mr. Marr reported to you 2 meetings ago, we're about to enjoy yet another provincial download, in this case in the engineering world. But over the arc of my career, my entire experience in government has been that municipalities keep being given more statutory authority and autonomy and more service expectation. So you're governing a more sophisticated beast that does more, that's involved in more aspects of society. And because of a taxation change by the federal government, in fact, paid substantively less than your predecessors when we're asking more of you. That's the situation.
Thank you for that. Anyone else have any questions with respect to this? Comments? Okay, thank you.
So I do have a resolution, Mr. Chair, moved by Councillor Kerr and seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved the council received the council remuneration review presented from the Manager of People Services for information.
So all those in favor of this? Okay, that's unanimous, so that's carried. So I guess that brings us to the official staff report regarding the remuneration review. So, Mr. Cribbs, do you have any further comments with respect to this?
Sometimes I'm wise enough to keep my mouth shut, and then it almost doesn't. Then there are almost no problems.
Okay, so the report has been circulated to staff or to council. I just have a quick question then, and we spoke about this yesterday, but for the benefit of the rest of council. Currently, the council receives consumer price index rate of inflation increase annually. Is this being amended with the staff recommendation at this time?
So sort of I'd like to answer that 2 ways. And the immediate answer is no, it's not being amended. That is the situation, and there's a bylaw in place, and your staff are obligated to adhere to bylaws until such time as a council decides to change them. The better answer, though, is that, as you're aware, we have the RFP has been awarded for the governance review, and there'll be a number of public presentations and a whole bunch of considerable process where Pelham looks at its governance structure over the coming not quite year. And out of that, there will be a number of options presented, and that could result in a larger council size, a smaller council size, the same council size, a different structure vis-a-vis how you're elected, and any number of changes are possible. And so ideally, we go to market twice. We do this analytical piece twice during a term of council. And I think it's, at the risk of speaking on behalf of Ms. Langor, certainly it's my intention to wait and see both what that analysis is, then ultimately whatever decisions council makes for the future of governance before we So we know there's going to need to be one more report sort of this nature, but I don't know what maybe it'll be status quo. Maybe we'll decide this is our best system. But if we change the number of elected officials or job duties and job descriptions change as a result of potential restructuring, then presumably compensation changes. And at that point in time, that's the right time to look at how that gets linked and how that occurs. So I don't know the end result outcome, that none of us do, and ultimately that will be your decision. But thereafter, there'll be some analysis done to make sure that it's positioned properly. And so we're going to get another bite at this apple before the next election. That's the one thing I can say. And realistically, that'll probably be about 2 years from now, plus or minus a bit of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cribbs. Any other questions with respect to the staff report? Seeing none, I guess we're faced with two options. Option one being the increases being effective immediately. The other option is option two, effective January 1st of 2024. So any comments with respect to that? We've got to select one. So Councillor Eckert.
I would be in favor of the option of the increase as of January 1st, 2024. I've only been here less than a year, and I think that would be a more appropriate time to have the increase, my opinion.
Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Hildebrand.
Deputy Mayor, I agree with Councillor Eckert. I would be voting for a January 1st increase.
Councillor Nisnik?
Councillor Kerr, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I too can concur with my fellow councillors on the January increase on that. That would save $10,000 from the budget from this year, so that would help us out a little bit. So I'm good with the January start.
Councillor Olson?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Councillor Kerr?
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor. I concur with the others relative to a January start. I think it fits in with the budget deliberations for the upcoming year in a better fashion rather than trying to take out of this year's budget. I mean, we have enough times that there's budget overruns on other things that maybe take a little more priority. We've known all year basically what the remuneration was for the calendar year. So delaying it until January of 2024, I think is quite appropriate.
Okay, thank you. So looks like we're all set with option two. So I'll turn it over to the clerk for the vote.
Thank you. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Eckhart and seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that Council will receive report 2023-0144, Council Compensation Review for information, and that Council adopt the recommendation salary increases for elected officials, and further be it resolved that Council direct the proposed salary increases to occur in the manner endorsed by option 2, January 1st, 2024, contained in the finance section of the report.
Okay, so any further questions or comments with respect to the motion? Seeing none, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favor? Seeing all hands raised, that's unanimous, and that's so carried. Thank you all. Councillor Kerr, do you have to move on at this point?
I think I've got about another 45 minutes that I can.
Okay, we'll squeeze it out then.
I'll do a bunch of waving when I have to leave.
Okay, thank you.
So moving now to item number 8 on the agenda. I have a motion moved by Councillor Nisnik and seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. C-16/2023 regular council meeting, September 6, 2023. To you, Mr. Chair.
So we've been able to review the minutes from the last council meeting. Any additions or deletions with respect to those Yes, Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Item number 9 of those minutes says that the council direct the Director of Planning and Development and the Fire Chief to communicate with the new owners and report back to council in Q4 of 2023. Here's my question I have for the clerk. Council's discussion on this item defined the period as 60 days. I agree 60 days equals Q4. Does Q4 equal 60 days equal November the 1st council meeting report back to council?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would say it's similar but not congruent. So we didn't nail it down. Our first meeting in November is the 1st of November, and depending on when staff have the opportunity to have those discussions with the new owners, formulate a report, review it with the CAO, and prepare it for the agenda. I can't say if that'll be the first meeting of November or the second meeting of November. So that's why it's set as Q4.
Yeah, and also Q4 starts at our next council meeting in October. So, I think it's safe to say that we will have a report at some point before the end of the year. So I don't think as part of those minutes that we zeroed in on the exact date of it. So I think the minutes are probably correct. It's just a further question on when we would get that report. Is that correct?
That's right, Deputy Mayor. My correspondence with all the residents was that we would have something back in 60 days because that was my interpretation of the council meeting we had, because this cannabis file has just slid back and back and back, and I wanted a definite date. And if I would have realized that that's where we're going to end up, Q4 is not satisfactory to me.
Mr. CAO?
Well, frankly, I think the clerk's got it right. It's setting an arbitrary date of a particular day in November is not particularly helpful. We understand the importance of this community. We've already committed to Q4. We're essentially committing to some time in the month of November. But the problem with demanding specific dates, it's one thing when it's internal staff performance. We can simply say, okay, that rises to the top of the desk, and it's part of my job function to make sure that we deliver on time. But here, you're requiring an external party to talk to us on our timeline, and that's not something we exercise full control over. So if coming 2 weeks later is going to deliver a better result or a better work product, then it's going to come 2 weeks later, so we get a better result and a better work product. And I'd strongly recommend you not give us a specific date. Q4 is, we use that language every time we're dealing with third parties and we don't have full control over the variables, frankly, that go into a discussion and a negotiation. So this is properly constructed. I have no doubt, just because we've lived through this file for more than 4 years, that it will be well understood in the community when it's on a council agenda, and that the audience will be fully populated. But communications will not be a problem on the file. It never has been, and frankly, I think it never will be. Somewhere in the month of November we'll be here, but Q4 also, if frankly, if it needs one more week, I don't think the first week of December is a backbreaker, so long as we make some real progress and headway on the file. So I'd ask that we keep the language as it is. Thank you.
So, Councillor Hildebrand?
Yeah, I think that explanation is satisfactory. I just want to highlight the importance. My concern is that Tilray will be like the past owners. They'll just not respond. You'll come and try and ask a question, and we won't get a response. So the report will really tell us no more than we know now. Thank you very much. I will be improving the meals.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. So I'll turn it over to the clerk for the vote.
So the motion is on the floor, Mr. Chair, as adopted and printed and circulated. We just need to vote on that. So.
Okay, so all those in favor of the minutes? Okay, that's unanimous again, so that's carried.
you, Mr. Chair. Moving now to item number 9. Here's the opportunity if there's any requests from council members to lift consent agenda items for separate consideration and resolution.
So any councilors wish to lift any of these items?
So moving now to the consent agenda, I have a motion moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the September 20th, 2023 council agenda be received and the recommendations contained in herein be approved. I'll turn it over to you to break it out down into the pieces that you would like, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so why don't, if you would like to make any comments about any of these items, please do so. We'll do 10.11 and 10.12 together. Anyone have any comments with respect to either of those? Councillor Eckhart?
On 10.1.1, the demolition of the former school, I'm directing this to Mrs. Weens, but when I read that report, it appears to me that there's very little left of the original structure, and what is left is in very poor condition, rotting, etc. Am I accurate in that assessment?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, through you, yes, you are. Certainly, staff have gone through the building and photographed and documented in the interior of the building. There is virtually nothing original left. And some of the walls, and there's some openings in the ceilings where, because the building hasn't been maintained, and we can see parts of the original structure, and we were able to note that, you know, even that original wood frame structure is rotting and is in very poor condition.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions with respect to those two items? Seeing none, I'd like to move to 10.2 and 10.3 if there's any questions or comments. So Councillor Olson.
Yes, Mr. Deputy Mayor, my comments are about 10.3.1, and my position on this has been pretty clear. I'm not in favor of the complaint fee, and I believe the ombudsman has been very clear to a number of communities that that's not the way the business should be conducted. I'm a little bit confused at what I can say about this because I voted against the last motion, and I'm not sure what I can say about this or what I can do with it because, you know, and or whether I bother going on any further with it at all. So, could I ask Mr. Cribbs where I?
Yes, certainly.
You have identified the procedural pickle. You are, of course, able to speak to anything on the agenda, as I think you're doing so fairly ably right now. So that is probably the extent of your current capacity to address the issue. The thing available to you is moral suasion of your colleagues. But yes, a vote to reconsider has to be brought by someone who voted one way and now wants to reverse their position. And of course, you've been extremely consistent in yours, sir. Yeah. So here we are.
So,
well, I guess I'm not going to change anybody's mind anyway, but I do want to place my objections in front of everybody again, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, so noted. Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions with respect to 1.2 and 10.2 and 10.3? Seeing none, we'll move along to 10.4. And seeing no hands up, I'll turn it to the clerk then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we do have the motion moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Hildebrand to receive the consent agenda items listed and approved as contained herein. So for the vote, please.
So all those in favor of the consent agenda? Did you have your hand up? Sorry, I don't have eyes in the back of my head, but okay. That's again unanimous, so that is so carried.
This would be a good time for a break.
Yeah, why don't we break at this point in time for 5 minutes? Count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not 15. So we'll have a 5-minute break, please.
I will probably leave at this point.